Today, I'd like to shift the focus from my own explaining of PhD study to sharing of some alumni with a unique experience. Welcome back to PhD Coffee Time. This is the online community for you as PhD student to get motivation, peer support, and practical tips during your PhD. The focus of this channel is always to make the open, supportive discussion to help PhD students navigate the challenging time. Today, I'm lucky to get the sharing from Pooja. She had almost quit her PhD on the 5th year. Now she has graduated and get into a role in the science industry. I asked her what would be the tip for all the viewers if they were going through similar situation. Here is our conversation. And how do you feel at the moment you finally graduated? That was how many years for your case?
After 6.5, almost 7 years actually.
So you've got this negative environment since the 5th years and you persevere through for another 1.5 and then you finished.
Yes. Wow, that sounds rough just talking about it.
This is Pooja. She was a PhD student just like you, and now she's working as a research scientist in the United States. Looking back, Pooja has these tips for our audience.
I'm very proud of myself, right? There were students in my program who quit their PhD in their 5th year. I hope that they had tried everything they could to make it a successful PhD and then made that decision and did not leave hopeless. This situation is almost like quicksand. You know, the more you start pedaling, actually, you're not doing much, but worsening your own situation. And you need to just be calm, focused, and come up with a tangible plan that will help you exit. I can't help but notice there's a lot of similarity of someone graduating a PhD and getting out of quicksand. First of all, you need to get rid of all your baggage so you can focus. It could be uncomfortable and not glamorous. If you are not panicking and calm, you may get out of it. Here is the story of her PhD. My PhD work was on identifying small molecule ligands for receptor proteins. The major challenge in that field was we were trying to do this in an untargeted, unbiased fashion without an existing method or a pipeline of method, and we were trying to develop it on the go. This is a multi-stage process, right? One, because small molecule ligand discovery and biology is quite challenging and not a lot of people do it in an untargeted fashion. So there is very limited existing method and materials that you can read and learn from. In retrospect, this is how she would develop her PhD during the toughest time. Don't choose a project just because the question is interesting. I came from a mindset where I was almost told like, this is too low fruit. This is just too low for us. It's not high risk, high reward. And if you have 3 projects and all of them are high risk, high reward, you are in for big trouble. You need to have some project, even if it is 1 out of the 3, which is like a low fruit that gives you encouragement that you are a good scientific thinker. I understand that you have to really like have big projects and make a big invention. Right. Try doing it in small steps. You know how they say you should develop it in an inverted pyramid fashion? It's inverted because it starts from a very broad goal and then narrows down into a very fine focus. So you start with a big search and then focus it down, and that's how you build in the depth of a PhD. I had never structured my PhD project that way. I think the bottleneck was twofold. One, not having a concrete study plan very meticulously written down with contingency plans if this does not work out, what we will do. And 2, being aware of what are the existing methods out there. I just never knew that I had to search this. So I never knew what challenges I was going to face. I was not prepared for it. And then 3 years later, we were just like, these methods don't work for our project. We have to come up with a new method. Then you start searching a new method. Then you develop and optimize the method. And then probably you lead to a discovery. Yeah, it's a long route, and the solution is
structure your project, think about contingency plans of how to address your question. So my PhD in biochemistry was nothing like I imagined it to be. One, because I did not have a mentor outside of my lab who would walk me through my day-to-day struggles, align me as to what I was getting into and how to react to these situations and circumstances. After my 5th year of being in grad school, what started to build up was more of societal or like a peer-induced pressure, where things like, oh, you're already in like your 5th year and you're not thinking of graduating, or you're not ready to graduate, or your advisor being, I don't think you're there yet, you're not ready for writing a paper, or your work is not to power as it should be for like a 5th year student, while negating all the struggles that had to be overcome to reach to that point. Which I thought was a very good achievement from my own perspective, because nobody else could have done it if they were strong and resilient to stay that long. But I could not cope effectively with these kind of statements, which started negatively impacting me. And so that state of mind was very dismembering for me. This situation is almost like quicksand. The more you start pedaling, actually you're not doing much but worsening your own situation, and you need to just be calm, focused, and come up with a tangible plan that will help you exit. The only thing that I think helped was actually speaking to fellow PhDs who were then out of PhD, had moved on with their careers, but helped me rationalize how to get out of it. And almost certainly what was involved in it was a lot of self-confidence. You can constantly be told, this is not good enough, this is not enough, this is not this is not that. But if you believe that you are ready with your scientific talent, if you believe that you have made a sizable contribution and you feel ready for your next step, for your next professional goal, then you should actually be strong enough to demand for it. That's how I used my last 1 year in grad school. It was a very like self-driven push. Like I wanted to get out of the tunnel, and nobody else could have done it for me except for myself.
If there's one thing you can tell that 5th year Pooja, what is that one thing that you think is important to tell her?
Ooh. And I tell this to myself even today: don't let anybody else judge you. Tell them how you judge yourself. If I had been more vocal about how strongly I felt that this was a huge challenge overcome, it took 3 years to develop this assay, it is not trivial. If I was more vocal, more confident in my accomplishments, it would have resonated better with the person I was speaking with. I was very underconfident in my own achievements. So be proud of yourself.
What was the most important way of addressing this problem? Because there is a point you have to convince your PI, we have to get something that's working and you have to graduate. What would you advise if there's a student going through similar problem? What is the way to address this with the PI without hurting the feeling, and they can get out of this situation and graduate with the PhD? What is the most important language and mindset?
Straight up being honest about what you want to get out of your PhD program. And 2 is realizing that there is a very fine balance between how much of scientific creativity you can achieve and how long you want to be in this PhD academic environment. When you answer those 2 questions for yourself, it already tells you how much time you have and how much liberty to be creative you have. Actually making a very detailed plan of how you're going to address the question. I was given this PhD project question and I did not have a plan. On the go, I used to just keep doing many small experiments which never actually build up to a narrative. It just is a collection of things that don't work. If I had a contingency plan with very specific aims, specific objectives, and then you try to systematically address it, every step that you learn adds up to something. So you have to be given a big question, make several small specific aims and answer them independently. That structure may not come from your advisor or from your committee, and if it does not, then sit down with a postdoc, sit down with another experienced PhD from that field and work out this plan for yourself.
if someone is in the similar situation, they are taking graduate studies for a longer time than other people have, and they're starting to face this comments, criticism by the peers around them. What is one take-home piece of advice then you would give for this person?
I think the metric for academic success is very narrow-minded. Focus on what you want to do next and what that next step requires out of you, and try to attain that. Yeah, don't try to match up to anybody else's professional track.
At this point of the interview, I imagine it must be difficult being an international student, living in a foreign country, and getting through the 5th year of a PhD project. A PhD is certainly hard for the science, but the even more challenging part of PhD could be the emotional strength. If you are in that situation, never let yourself do it alone. Did you have any tips on how to connect to PhDs who could help the situation at the time?
For my own case, I did not feel comfortable with speaking with someone or a fellow PhD who was in my close vicinity. I did not find that like a safe space. So I definitely went over and beyond to find alums from the same lab area so that they understood my mindset. The way to do that actually I went about was I knew that I wanted to move out of academia and be in like a biotech industry position. So I started it actually as a career networking for myself, and then started realizing from that discussion that these were individuals who went through the same struggles, and then asked them how they overcame it, because that gave me two solutions at the same time. That how do you get out of the situation if you're unhappy? It showed me like that was a positive example, like if they could do it, there was hope and I could do it.
This is wonderful. I'm sure the audience would love this coffee break with you, because this is the piece of advice a lot of PhD would wish they had.
I'm glad to help. Thank you for having me. I think this is a great platform to voice an opinion. I hope people find this as useful as I have found your other videos.
Okay, I hope this conversation is helpful for you and maybe for someone you know that may benefit from this. If you want to participate in PhD Coffee Time conversation, you can comment below or find me on any social media platform. I'd love to hear a story and you could be featured in the next video. I'd like to thank Pooja, research scientist. It's valuable to have a coffee with someone who has been through this before. My vision of this channel is not to limit myself talking about my PhD experience, because I only represent the n equal 1. So it will be more valuable to you as a viewer to learn from all of these people who have been through the same process, and let me try to take away a few practical tips, and maybe they could be a support system for your PhD studies. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you the next time.